how does Penn State beat Notre Dame in the college football playoff semifinals? This is a team that is playing really well defensively and it has had some struggles offensively, but also shown some flashes of what it can do. And now they face a Notre Dame team that is playing with a ton of confidence as well. This is going to be an extremely fun matchup to watch. And these two teams have some similarities, similar to what Penn State had against Boise State. We'll take a look at what Boise State can do, the keys to the game, the players that you need to watch, who they need to stop, and all of that to determine how they go on to the next round. A 13-2 season so far for Penn State. It's been really fun. James Franklin has silenced some of the critics with his wins in the college football playoff, though beating SMU and Boise State probably doesn't get most people excited. I think there's a lot of the national media that are still skeptical of if this is a legitimate team, but we have seen some evidence that this could be a really good team and a team that is capable of winning a national championship. They obviously did what they could against Ashton Genty. I mean, holding to 104 yards is a win for sure. When you watch the film, it's very obvious that Ashton Genty had nowhere to run. This defense is electric. They play lights out, and there's a big question about that group still, and we'll talk about later in the video. Notre Dame is currently a 1.5-point favorite. I'm curious if that factors into the motivation, quote unquote, that this Penn State team has, but I think that the fact that they've been doubted and people have concerns about them going forward maybe is reason enough for them to continue competing, obviously, and playing to the level that they've been playing so far. Now, when you look at the keys to the game, there's plenty of things that we can talk about, but there are certain things that we saw from the last game that either have to get fixed or need to happen against Notre Dame. First thing is stop the run. Notre Dame is a team that likes to run the football. In fact, it is the strength of their team. And you look at what they did against Georgia, 150 yards, which isn't crazy, but still very good against a Georgia team that is very good up front. So stopping the run is going to be a big key. It's the same as we saw against Boise State. Stopping the run and forcing a quarterback who maybe isn't the best passer in Riley Leonard is going to be a big key. And I think that this defense has the ability to do that. It's just a matter of doing it consistently, just like they did against Boise State. And I will see what they have. I mean, Ashton Genty felt like he was very close to breaking off some big runs, but Penn State played with really good discipline. They wrapped up. Even when they broke, Ashton Genty broke over 30 tackles against Penn State, but Penn State had guys swarming to the football, and that's going to help you against Notre Dame as well. Jeremiah Love is very explosive. Jadarian Price is very good as well. So they have talent, and I think one thing that's nice is that when you face Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton in practice every week, probably don't put at them on a 100% every single play, but you face guys that have talent that make you play with discipline, and they're going to have to do that against Notre Dame as well. Sticking with what works, I think the one thing that we saw against Boise State was there were some frustrations with the play calling. They had 216 yards rushing, 171 yards passing. I think that will get sorted out, and I think that was just very confusing. When you look at what Penn State was doing well. Running the football was not a problem. Boise State didn't really have an answer unless they played fundamentally sound because they were the less talented team. Penn State was the more talented team, and they were taking it to them, but at times they ran away from that. Very obvious situations that should have been run plays were pass plays. And there's, you could go on and on about that, but I think that if the run game is going to work, you need to stick with it more than you did against Boise State because they could have run for a lot more. That game could have been out of hand earlier, and that just needs to get fixed. But again, every person is going to have a bad game. Even play callers can have an off game where they're not necessarily reading the game perfectly and they're trying to do a little bit too much. And one thing that we've admired about Andy Koltnicki all year is all these different plays, all these different looks, their different formation shifts, all that stuff. Sometimes you just need to stick with the basics. Now, I will say that this game maybe requires his creativity a little bit more than what we saw against Boise State. Against Boise State, he probably could have run similar plays over and over again and had success. Against Notre Dame's defense, you might have to switch things up. You might have to run a few more of those plays that you did against Boise State. I think that the game plan or the play calling against Boise State will work better maybe against Notre Dame, a team that is better equipped to stop the run than necessarily what you saw against Boise State. The last one is staying healthy. There have been a number of injuries that we saw against Boise State. Abdul Carter is one of them. What is his status going into it? I haven't seen anything as I'm recording this yet. So we'll see what happens. He is an absolute game changer at defensive end. He's been an absolute monster for this team. And if he's not able to go, who's going to take over? Who's going to step up and be that guy? I don't necessarily know if we have an answer for that yet, but I think that it's going to be a big key and a big question to answer. If they're not able to do that, how much does Notre Dame benefit? This is still a really good Penn State defense, but we also saw some concerns when Carter left the game, and maybe those get exposed, but also maybe guys step up and play to a level that they're capable of. We will see. The players that you need to pay attention to for Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a number of guys that are going to create some issues. We talked about a couple of them. Jadarian Price is one of them. Jeremiah Love. Those are guys that want to run the football. They're very good at running the football. Penn State has to find a way to slow them down. Riley Leonard, though, is going to be the big X factor. Similar to how Drew Aller is for Penn State, Riley Leonard is going to be the X factor for Notre Dame. If he is playing with confidence, he's going to run the football. He's going to be part of the rushing attack, but he's also going to throw the football. And how well he throws the football, how efficiently he throws the football, could dictate how this game plays out. Jordan Faison has to be more involved. I think if you're going to have a successful night against Penn State, maybe Bo Collins is going to step up. Someone has to play a bigger role in the passing attack. If they want to win a national championship, Notre Dame's going to have to find guys that need to step up. So there's a number of players that you need to pay attention to, but Penn State feels like they're in a good position to slow that group down. On the defensive side of the ball for Notre Dame, Jack Kaiser is a veteran who's very smart. He'll have his guys in position. He's also a fierce competitor that'll get guys ready to go. So it's going to be a tough battle in the trenches. That's a big key for this game as well, is how these two teams compete in the trenches. That's going to dictate how things go. Howard Cross on the defensive line, RJ Oben. You've seen guys step up, and Notre Dame has dealt with some injuries. So they have definitely had guys step up in a big way. The passing attack will be interesting. How does Notre Dame cover Tyler Warren? That's going to be a big question, I think. And we'll see what happens there. Is it going to be Kaiser? Maybe a guy like Leonard Moore does that. I'm very interested to see what they do to guard Tyler Warren. Now, everybody knows, if you're a Penn State fan, you know the players to watch for your team. I think one of the nice things that we've seen so far is the Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton 1-2 punch has worked for most of the year. I think that they've done a really good job of being efficient, and there hasn't been a lot of controversy, really any actually, that I've heard of, one of these guys being upset that they're not getting enough carries. They're just doing what they need to do, and both of them have a future in the NFL. So it'll be fun to watch. They obviously had really good games against Boise State. Allen almost averaged 8 yards per carry. Singleton averaged just over 7. That's going to get you a lot of wins on a lot of football games. So that's going to be fun. Drew Aller is the X factor for their team, similar to Riley Leonard being the X factor for Notre Dame. Drew Aller has to step up. And I think at times it was just kind of, put him in a tough spot. And Boise State definitely did a lot to rattle him. But they also saw him make a number of nice throws. You saw him make some big-time throws, some difficult passes to the sideline. And that is something that must continue. He must continue to make some of those throws. 13 of 25 for 171 yards and 3 touchdowns isn't really going to impress a lot of people. But that's why you also watch the film. Yes, it wasn't his best game, but he also made some throws when they needed him to. He stepped up and delivered. But you'd obviously like to see him be a little bit more accurate, complete some more passes. The passing attack in general should take a step forward. At least that's what Penn State needs. And it can't just be Tyler Warren, though Tyler Warren presents a lot of matchup problems. He provides a different type of player for Penn State, and we saw that against Boise State. Boise State did not have an answer for him. And yeah, you could have seen his stats go a little bit higher, but 6 catches for 63 yards and 2 big touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns were coming at big moments when they needed them, and Aller made some nice throws on those catches. So there's a lot to be said about what this team needs to do, but also there's a lot to be said about what they're capable of doing. And when this team plays well together, they're a really good team. They're a national championship type team. We'll see if they can get there. It's going to be difficult, but they have the tools to do it. The defense is going to have to step up if Abdul Carter is not able to go. That's going to be a big question. We talked about that already. Amin Vanover stepped up pretty nicely for Penn State. I think that he did a really good job of creating pressure, and he has a really good frame that's going to be fun to watch for this Penn State team against Notre Dame if Abdul Carter can't go. And I don't know what his status is going to be, but the fact that it was a close game and he did not go back in tells me that maybe this is more serious. Now he's had time to get off. We'll see what he is capable of doing in terms of recovery, in terms of rehab. Maybe he's able to play, but Amin Vanover could be stepping up into a bigger role than maybe he originally thought. Danny Sutton was also a couple of the penalties you probably like to see him, that they're definitely going to address that. That's something that's going to get talked about in film. You just don't need to do that. That's going to cost you against better teams than Boise State, and it's just not a good look for your draft stock as well. So that's got to stop. But he is a player that can step up as well. He has shown that he's capable of doing that. Getting rid of the extracurriculars is going to be a big thing for him as well. But this is a Penn State team that is locked and loaded for a run. They are ready for what Notre Dame brings to the table. Penn State has the ability to win this football game. There are some keys that need to happen and some questions that need to be answered. But make no mistake about it, this team is ready to show that they are ready for a national title appearance, and they could be potentially ready to win it all.